We treat our deepest longings as if locked inside a vault, isolated thoughts and private feelings existing only within the boundaries of our own heads. This creates a mental ledger of anxieties. We build up social boundaries and defensive egos, effectively walling ourselves off from the very connections we claim to want. In a traditional Brûlé Sioux myth, we find a young, impoverished hunter standing outside the lodge of a great chief. He is desperate to speak to the chief's proud daughter, but he is trapped by the rigid social architecture of his camp. He has no status, no wealth, and no permissible way to bridge the distance between them. Bound by a custom that has sealed him out, he eventually wanders into the forest, lost and alone. The hunter situation reveals the ultimate dead end of the private self. He proves that true connection cannot be achieved by simply trying to force your way through social or egoic walls. While fasting on a lonely hill, the hunter receives a vision of a red-headed woodpecker drilling holes into a dead cedar branch. He watches as the wind breathes through those specifically carved hollows, producing a natural, resonant whistle that requires no human invention to exist. The hunter realizes the wood doesn't need to be forced to sing. The secret is carving the right spaces for the wind to do the work. He returns to the village and applies this observation, hollowing out the cedar exactly as the bird showed him. This flute is a collaboration between bird, wind, wood, and breath. It serves as physical proof that, in this world, nothing exists alone. The hunter plays the new instrument, letting the sound drift across the camp's physical barriers toward the chief's daughter. Inside her lodge, the daughter's logical mind immediately rejects the suitor. She remembers his poverty and his lack of status, using her intellect to maintain the wall between them. But her body responds to a different arithmetic. Her feet begin to move toward the music, pulling her outside before her conscious mind can object. The flute acts as a relational technology, a tool that surfaces a natural resonance the woman had been taught to wall up. It reveals a connection that was already there, waiting for the right frequency to call it out. Connection exists as a shared physical resonance between two people, a frequency that can only be felt once the ego's defensive barriers have been bypassed. This mechanical reality of the flute, where sound only emerges when two separate entities find a common frequency, extends past the edge of the village. In this worldview, the universe functions as a responsive system, a living web where human, animal, and star are linked. The boundaries we take for granted dissolve. This web allows for myths where humans marry the moon, and tricksters navigate desire like a weather pattern. Indigenous sacred clowns prove this through their actions, blending the holy with the earthly to show that the physical body and the sacred realm are part of the same breath. Once you recognize this web, the world stops being a dead backdrop. It becomes a responsive field where every single action is an input that the rest of the system feels. In a world where everything is perfectly connected, we have to ask, what happens when someone breaks a vow or pollutes that sacred connection? The response isn't a sentence handed down by a detached judge. It is simply the natural feedback of the web attempting to correct the rupture you made. We see this in the myth of the greedy father. Because he hoards salmon while his family starves, the grain of the universe shifts to reflect his choice, transforming him into a bird that must eat mud. We see it in the lovers who broke their promise and were cast into the sky to become stars. They chase each other eternally, serving as a visible reminder of the momentum of a broken bond. You cannot escape the web. You can only choose how you relate to it. Cosmic consequence is just the landscape making the quality of our relationships visible. All of these cosmic principles eventually return to the physical flute resting on the earth. Our modern world encourages us to treat life as a series of objects to be conquered, but the practice of the flute is different. It requires settling the body and listening to the silence until the sound arrives on its own. We often measure success by how much we can change the world around us, but here the metric is different. Truth isn't won through force, but discovered through alignment. You do not force the branch to sing. You simply become the kind of person the call can move through.